11, the podcast where we crank up the volume on AI and education to the absolute max to help you stay on top of what's happening in AI and why it matters.
I'm Brett Rower, CEO and founder of Amplify and Elevate Innovation. And every week at AMP211, we're going to put our guests through 11 questions designed to uncover the jaw-dropping stories, the bold ideas, and the insights that are going to push the boundaries of what's possible in AI and education.
And I'm Rebecca Boltzma, here to break it all down and make sure we leave you with practical, actionable takeaways in AI and innovation every single week. All right. Well, first up in the world of AI news this week, I want to talk about something that Google dropped in the last month that I think should be getting a lot more attention. If you're a teacher or a student or really anyone who does research, you'll probably be interested in this. But it's called Google Deep Research. And honestly, it's like Google gave everyone their own personal research assistant. And I've tried it out this week, and it's actually really, really impressive. Have you heard of this at all yet, Brett?
No, but it is very timely based on some conversations I had today. So I'd love to listen, and then I'll share where I think this could fit into the both educator and student experience.
All right. Well, it's a new feature within Google's Gemini Advanced AI that will basically autonomously or on its own conduct in-depth research for you by scanning multiple websites, 40, 50, 80, 100 different websites, conduct in-depth research and synthesize all of the findings into a comprehensive, well-cited research report for you in just minutes. So this is great because unlike a regular Google search that just gives you a bunch of links back or dumps you back a bunch of things to check out, it actually goes off on its own. First, it creates a research plan with a focus and a sub-focus and gives you the chance to edit the focus and the sources, and you tell it exactly what you're looking for. And then the wild part is it just goes out on its own. It keeps digging deeper and deeper. It follows leads, and then it connects dots, and it goes down these rabbit holes like we would do over the course of a 3-hour research session on Google. But it just does it in the background. It says, come back in about 5 minutes and I'll have this ready for you. And so it's just kind of like having this really enthusiastic grad student or student teacher that never needs a coffee break. It's just doing the work in the background. So what's kind of neat about this is it's this first kind of teaser or look into what we're hearing a lot about in the AI space, which is this idea of AI agents, right? Having these AI tools that can go and do work on our behalf in the background without us having to supervise it and prompt it along every step of the way. So this agentic AI just kind of works more independently. It does the legwork, but I think really the possibilities are huge. Tell me, give me your initial reactions here, Brett. What are you thinking?
One, this is a great tool. As someone who was a history major in college and did a lot of deep research, this would have been so incredible to have that at your fingertips and then to really be able to analyze the data instead of scouring for the data. That's a totally different tool and skill. And I always think of this analogy they talk about when you're doing research, right? You can either fish for your research and whatever you catch, that's what you use. And so if you don't have access to great databases and tools because of paywalls, you have a massive equity issue. Or if you have a wide, deep base of knowledge, it really comes down to how much time and capacity you have to actually engage with all of it. So again, it's another constraint, and that could be an equity issue as well. So I think this is something that could solve for some of that inequity in higher ed research and even research for high school age and middle school age students potentially. So I love that aspect of it, but I'd love to hear like your thoughts. What are we not thinking about that could be an unintentional consequence maybe of something like this?
Well, you actually made me think when you talked about that equitable access and the paywalls, because I do wonder, I think one of the limitation of these AI tools that are connected to the internet is they also don't necessarily have access to paywalled resources. So we're not still having equitable access, and we don't anyway, if we're being honest. The average person who wants to use academic resources but isn't a university student, there isn't equitable access to information anyway. And so that will be something interesting to look at. I know Google has Google Scholar, which basically just returns the scholarly results, but doesn't necessarily give you access to them. So that's something really, really interesting to think about. I think we all talk a lot about this equitable access idea of everyone has to have access to AI and the same level and people can't be disadvantaged. But we forget that there's educational resources out there that are not able to be accessed by everyone. And that will actually continue to be a problem even with this amazing technology. And I think one other thing that we need to put a little asterisk or disclaimer on is obviously with the AI reality check, it's a tool, not a magic wand. It's still super important to think critically about what it finds, what it returns, check your sources, which I actually have a great story about checking your sources coming up in a couple of minutes here. But that's kind of a few of my initial thoughts. I've given it a try. I actually, on my LinkedIn, had it do a research report on itself on Google Deep Research, and it did a pretty good job. It came back with 40 sources and wrote a summary report with full citations in with a reference list that was perfectly formatted. So I think, this will be pretty handy. There's the risk that people won't engage deeply with sources, but this is part of the landscape scan. This is what's out there. And if you're a teacher trying to dig deep on a subject or a student, this is a tool you'll probably end up experimenting with.
Yeah, well, you said something in the beginning that also made me, I'm starting to realize more and more. I attended a VR and AI symposium last night in New York City, and one of the statistics was, the post-AI world, in just a few years, right? Everyone has a different timeline, but somewhere, many of the leaders in AI are saying, AI right now is generative. One day it might have this ability to reason, and how that there's just going to be so much change in the coming years because of AI. And so even what you said, like this is almost like having a teacher assistant or TA that never needs a coffee break. Well, that makes me think, great, like, will there be less TAs in the future, right? Like, what is the element, like, will they be repurposed, right? You still need like people to help and support, the students in the class and providing like office hours and doing that at scale. But again, it's one of those things where we don't know this, right? Because we don't know the quality of this, and we don't know which things it can replace about the human experience and which things it will augment, and that people can use this as another valuable tool to be a better TA. We will find out. But that's the kind of stuff now I'm realizing, all these qualifiers that we really need to be mindful of. And just a question for you, because you've been exploring it. When it comes back, are you able to say, hey, that's not a good source for the future? Like, don't give me things from that database or that website?
Interesting. And I don't have the answer. I know that on things like ChatGPT, there's a memory function. I'm not sure if that exists within this particular program yet, but let me check into it because that's something good to consider for the future. And again, our third story, I'll tell you a little bit more about an experience I had with that recently, but not with Google. But we'll circle back. We'll follow up on this deep research. But your comment actually leads me perfectly. It's a perfect segue into the next headline story that I grabbed that I really think our ed community will be interested in. And it's about an AI pilot program from the World Bank. And they just released results of a study that showed students using AI tutoring made up 2 years of learning progress in just 6 weeks. So Connor Grennan, who's someone I follow religiously on LinkedIn, he's a chief AI architect at the NYU Stern School of Business. He posted about this, and so it triggered my deep dive. But it was a study that was randomized, controlled trial of students using GPT-4 as a tutor in Nigeria. And they used Microsoft Copilot, and the teachers provided guidance and initial prompts. So this is a really important part of the story. But 6 weeks of after school teacher-led AI tutoring increased the test scores by an equivalent of 2 years of typical learning gains. And so it outperformed, I guess, benchmarks of 80% of other educational interventions, which is huge. It worked for everyone, but actually girls gained even more ground than the boys. And the cool part is that the skills that they learned through these tutoring sessions extended beyond what they were actually being tutored in to their other subjects because they were actually learning how to learn instead of just learning how to better memorize facts in that particular subject. And the reason why Ethan Mollick says that this works, another great person to follow on LinkedIn, a thought leader in the space, is because of this idea of personalization that we hear a lot connected to AI. And honestly, like if we think about why tutoring works in the first place, traditional tutoring, it's that one-on-one personalized for you experience, right? But the important part here that Ethan Mollick points out is that the fact that it's teacher-led is important because he's done a bunch of research that shows that independent student use of AI can actually harm learning, or kids become too reliant on it because it gives them the illusion of learning. But having teachers lead that experience was a critical ingredient. So there'll be a paper follow up on this soon, and I don't know what it means long term. But tell me a little bit about your initial reaction to hearing something like that.
I appreciate you giving all that context, because part of me, while we were doing this, is like, there's a heavy dose of skepticism, obviously. And part of me is like, that actually, I'm trying to think of use cases of students, like in my own life or even myself, of like, in certain areas, AI, like the amount of progress I've made in certain aspects of my life, I don't even think it'd be quantified in years. We're talking decades. We're talking light years.
Mm-hmm.
Other things where I don't think it's made a big impact in my growth and development in certain skills. So again, like, I would love to actually learn about like how, if that, let's start here. It sounds like it's well researched. It sounds like they did all the clinical, data trial regulations. So like, assume best intentions and best practices. And let's say that really worked. I mean, the first thing I would love to know is what exactly is replicable about that, and what are the exact takeaways that you would want to embed as best practices. So you already mentioned these are teachers who sound very well trained in how to maybe are they just highly effective teachers, and now they're given a tool that turbocharges their teaching impact? Maybe.
Great question.
Students provided, again, like, are they going from 0 to 100 in terms of like, what were they previously using, right? To have no, to not make any assumptions, like, were they using technology already and these students were pretty fluent, or were like, they not have any technology and now they're given, this incredible technology, and therefore like that inflated rate of progress? These are things that come to mind, but I'm not skeptical about, if done well, personalized learning with an amazing instructor and an amazing tool. I have no doubt that in certain areas you could make tremendous growth. So, something you said about the idea that you can't, like, some students are using AI to cheat or to get answers. I actually used a tool yesterday called Poe for the first time. It's
Oh
probably
yeah, Poe. It's a great tool. It's a great tool.
Yeah, and I never had a need to use it, but I was like, this is so cool. To be teaching a course on AI, and the professor that I'm planning the curriculum with was like, we're going to teach everyone how to make a bot on this because it's free and accessible to everyone, and you get a certain number of tokens. And I was like, this is great. And the only thing I wanted to try is, like, I explained to him that what many students try to do is, jailbreak it, immediately try to break the bot. So I was trying to break the bot, and it wouldn't let me do it. It didn't matter how many, I wasn't doing this exhaustively. I'm sure someone else could do it better, but bottom line was, it gave immediate feedback. It was an essay revision feedback bot. Gave great feedback, but like, it wouldn't rewrite it for you, but it would continue to, like, very specific feedback. And I'm like, this is great. Like, this is like perfect. It gave me excellent feedback. It put it in a way, I mean, there's other ways you could take that feedback and then use it in another tool, I guess. But like, I loved that exact thing really just taught. It didn't do the work for me.
Great use case. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds great. That's a way that can be truly helpful. So it'll be interesting to see how this translates over into, our society and what it means for that partnership with AI, but keeping student-led education and teacher-led education at the core and the forefront of everything that we do. So we'll keep an eye on that story as well. So the last kind of headline is kind of fun. It's a new feature that was announced, and it's actually within ChatGPT, and it's called Tasks. So a few days ago, OpenAI announced that they were releasing a beta version of this feature, and basically, it's a new way to ask ChatGPT to do things for you at a future time. So whether it's a one-time reminder or recurring actions, you just tell ChatGPT what it needs to remind you to do and when, and it will just automatically take care of it. So, going back to our first story, this is interesting because it speaks again to that idea, a baby step anyway, towards that idea of agents and having an AI worry about something for you in the background that you don't have to be immediately dealing with at the time. And so, here's a quick kind of highlight of how people are using this feature. I did a quick scan using Grok on X, which is, an AI built into X that finds you real-time information on a topic. And some people use it and had it give a task like, hey, ChatGPT, every weekday at 8 a.m., help me prioritize my top 3 tasks for the day based on deadlines and importance. Or there's a website I found called datacamp.com. And one of his ideas was, hey, every Monday at 9 a.m., create a meal plan for the entire week, including a complete grocery shopping list. Keep the meals varied, gave it a bunch of information in the task. And so every Monday, it does that for him. My favorite idea that I came up with was every Monday at 7 a.m., remind me to listen to the latest episode of the App to 11 podcast and automatically give me a link to the website. So that could be a good task. But stay tuned for after our main episodes today, our main segment. And I'm just going to give you a quick step-by-step to walk through how to use the new feature, set it up, and then a few specific ideas of how educators and students could be using this right now. It's a little tricky to set up. It's not super intuitive. So stay tuned, and we're ready to head into our main segment. So today we have a very special guest in our podcast studio. Our guest is Dan Fitzpatrick, who is also known as the AI educator, and he is going to help us turn it up to 11 today. Dan is a teacher, and he helps schools strategically integrate AI. He is a Forbes contributor. He's a best-selling author of The AI Classroom, and he has a new book that by the time this podcast is released will already be out called Infinite Education. And I personally am very excited to read this. I read his first book. And fun fact about Dan, I actually had been using Dan's videos in my AI presentations for quite a while. And the conference in Ohio where Brett and I actually met, he came up to me and said, hey, you had that video in your presentation of Dan. Did you know he's speaking at this other partner AI conference? Do you remember that, Brett?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a full circle moment having the three of us together now having a conversation. So welcome, Dan. We are thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you so much. It's great to meet you. Eventually, I've been following you on LinkedIn and so on. And Brett, good to see you again. Last time we met, we were at Cat's Deli in Manhattan, having probably the biggest dinner I've ever had in my life.
Yes, it is our family's favorite establishment in New York City. It's one of our culinary traditions, and even I will say that was the most I've ever ordered at Katz's Deli either. But you made the Rower family proud, Dan. You
I think everyone around us was surprised as well. Everyone looking at our plates, like, what are you guys doing?
Yes. And to preface, we did take about a 5-mile walk there, so I think we earned that plate. But yes, even still,
Yeah,
quite.
you didn't tell me about that. You were like, "Oh yeah, let's go to Cats. It's just down here." Like 2 hours later, we're still walking. I'm like, "Is it around here?"
But definitely worth the walk. And yeah, that was a peak moment where AI met culinary experiences in New York City. So it was an amazing time, Dan. Pleasure to have you on the
I
podcast today.
enjoyed it. Thanks for
I
having me.
aspire for that experience. That's for sure.
That will be my new New York experience, and for all AI experts, that'll be the walk, the talk, and the meal. So we've set the bar high, Dan. It's really great having you on. I hope before we kick off our AM to 11 series of questions for each guest, please could you take a moment and just kind of explain, you know, a little bit about your journey, but most importantly, the new book that you have out. If you could kind of share with our audience what they can hope to learn by taking advantage of your latest work.
Of course, yeah. And thanks for the opportunity to share it. I really appreciate it. I was a teacher. I was a high school teacher for a number of years, and when I was doing that work, I always had an interest in the future of education. I was part of a podcast called Edgy Futurist, which is still going strong. I've stepped back from it now, but Ben and Steve, who presented us, are still doing an amazing job. And it's kind of part of my mission really as a teacher, as always to try and push the boundaries, and then moved on to high school leadership, senior leadership, and then moved into college education where I was in charge of innovation and digital strategies. And it was there really that I first came across artificial intelligence. So when I was writing this strategy, I remember I would go into a lot of local industries, spend some time with them, discover what was kind of cutting edge in terms of technology, and see if we could we bring it back into the curriculum, into how we do things within college education? And I remember hearing of this was a few years ago, it was pre-ChatGPT, hearing people talking about large language models and almost like as a calculator for words. And it really intrigued me. We started playing around with some early versions of this, of how it could help our lecturers and our teachers. And then obviously ChatGPT happened just over 2 years ago, and there wasn't much. I remember the first couple of days, like the last day of November, first day of December, there wasn't much out there in terms of anyone commenting on this by way of education and the impact on education. So I essentially, I on my cell phone, I pressed screen record, went to there was no app then, so I just went to the Chrome browser, found ChatGPT, and I think I asked it something really simple, like which now feels like just so simple, but back then was quite revolutionary. I think I typed in like create a lesson plan, something like that on ChatGPT. Um, Posted it, and then just started doing that. And then by the end of December 2022, I was getting a lot of requests, people saying, could you do webinars? Could you do like, and it was kind of exploding a bit really. And got a book deal in that time as well. And it just in it, I kind of found a passion for it in that time where I was like, I want to explore this more. So wrote the book, stepped aside from my job, and now I'm really lucky. I get to travel around the world, work with districts, schools, colleges, universities, businesses, helping them. Kind of two main things really. So awareness and skills around AI, and then also the strategic side. So my first book was all around kind of the awareness and the skills, and then I've just released this book, Infinite Education. I've still got this is the proof copy, as you can see with the label across the front. But yeah, it's just being released around how a school, a district, a college can strategically plan and innovate over the coming years with artificial intelligence.
Amazing. First, thanks for sharing that journey. And it's so incredible how, your passions and your skills intersect with the dawn of, AI as we know it now with the, launch of ChatGPT and everything that's come after that. So congratulations to you. Really excited to get our hands on the book and learn about how you're thinking more systemically about bringing it to people now that there's this initial awareness of how to utilize AI, especially in education. So again, kudos to you.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, Dan, we ask all of our guests 11 questions at AMP to 11 that we really hope will let our listeners, get insights into what excites you about AI and also some of the most important tips, tricks, strategies, and best tools out there. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, you kind of already prefaced a little bit about the dawn of AI with ChatGPT, how you were so impressed by the fact that it let you create a lesson plan and that you shared it with the world. So we know obviously the hit show Stranger Things, there's a character titled 11. She has these supernatural powers. Everyone's in awe the first time they experience her. What was a jaw-dropping AI moment that you experienced? Kind of something that you still can't believe how unexpectedly AI worked in that moment.
Yeah, it's interesting because it happens regularly, doesn't it? There's so many advancements with this technology that and I guess I think as humans we do this, don't we? We something really shakes our world, and then a few minutes later we're like, yeah, okay, what's next? And it just becomes normal then. I suppose one of the things I really like doing. So if I'm giving a keynote talk, one of the things I really like demonstrating is the Ray-Ban Meta glasses. So I still get a real kick out of showing people how those work. And it's still one of the and you guys will know from presenting on AI, you get those kind of gasp moments from the audience, and as time goes on they start to fade away. You don't get them as much because people are used to the technology, but it's still one of those moments when I show people that where I still get that gasp moment when people realize just how I suppose the application of the technology, the fact that you can have an AI that can see what you see, hear what you hear, on your face and be having a conversation with it. They're not perfect, but I think it's a real indicator of where the technology could go over the next few months and how useful they could be in our everyday lives. And kind of starts to give us that vision past some of the gimmicky sides of AI, if that makes sense, into the real day-to-day use of AI. So yeah, I think that, but honestly, I could name probably about 50 things under that category. But yeah, I think still using the wearable AI still surprises me, and they keep updating it regularly, so I keep getting those moments.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to see you do that, and I've seen clips of you doing that. And you're right, the interaction of the audience, those light bulb, aha, gaspable moments are truly incredible. Reminds me of the time we saw the machine, the AI robot in New
Oh,
York.
Sophia, yes, of course.
Yes,
Yeah.
and how many people there, that was a large audience of New York State education leaders as well as board members, and how so many of them, this was a true experience watching an AI robot interact with a moderator and do like a live interview on stage.
When people talk about generative AI at the moment, most people's minds go to ChatGPT. But once you start broadening that horizon of actually of what this could, it's almost like showing somebody a very early email in 1995, and people being, "Wow, this is amazing! We can send letters electronically," and then giving them a glimpse of what's going to be coming in 10 years, 15 years time with the internet. It just kind of makes people go, "Oh wow, I didn't actually think that the application would advance that fast." So yeah, absolutely.
So, for those of us who are having New York FOMO, tell me about Sophia.
Yeah, so me, I was lucky enough. I was invited to speak to the New York, get this right, New York State Schools
Board
Board,
Association.
Board Association. There we go. Um, so they had a conference at the Hilton in Manhattan. So I was keynoting that the second day, but the first day, the keynote was a robot, an AI robot called Sophia. So a lot of people, she's been around a while. She predates ChatGPT and so on, and I think she's the first ever robot to have citizenship of a country. Was it Saudi Arabia or some Middle Eastern country give her citizenship? Uh,
Yep.
and yeah, and I think she's like the ambassador for the UN on artificial intelligence as well. So it's essentially it's like yeah, she's a robot, isn't she, with like a human-like face, which the face moves a bit like a human, and she works off a language model in terms of how she talks, and she's pre-trained in certain ways. But yeah, myself and Brett had a chance to go up afterwards and have a kind of one-on-one conversation with her, which was interesting.
Wow.
Very much so. Yeah. Yeah. That was unique for me as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's a bit unnerving when you're the first time you especially trying to like looking at her in the eye and but even again, I think some of the things that we're starting to see being worked on behind the scenes at companies like Tesla and so on, even Sophia's going to be out of date very, very quickly, I think, and probably already is to a certain extent.
All right. For our resident UK expert here, we're going to actually, go across the pond here and talk about AMP to 11 gets its name from Spinal Tap, the iconic
Okay,
scene.
yeah.
Amps go up to 11 when they need to crank it up. So, Dan, you work with so many different tools. Would love for you to get your insights and share with our audience. When you really need to get something done, you need to push yourself to your absolute limits, crank it up to 11. What's an AI tool that you find is incredibly useful for your work today?
Yeah, I want to say ChatGPT, but it feels predictable. I It's interesting because my AI journey kind of what in terms of what I use as my core tools changes and fluctuates regularly. But I always come back to ChatGPT. I always kind of like Claude was my like primary tool for a month or so. Then ChatGPT updated, and I just found myself gravitating back. But I think so that I'm not giving the boring answer. I think the tool that I use the most to get my workflow going is Google Notebook LM. Now it's the popularity of Notebook LM is gone through the roof over the last few months. But I remember I was lucky enough. I did a webinar and had Steve Johnson, the guy from Google Labs who created Notebook LM. So I had him on, and I was talking to him about this and his vision behind it. And it was really interesting because he told me that Google Labs employed him um, purely because his background is in writing books. So he works for Google Labs, but he's not an engineer. He's not a technical person. He's an acclaimed best-selling author on many different books. Um, and a bit of an academic, and he's had documentaries on Netflix and so on. But they hired him because they wanted this tool to be made from the ground up by somebody who understood what it meant to work on a long writing project and understood what it meant to publish work and to research work, which really and I think that kind of shines through with this tool that it has been made from the ground up by somebody like that. And if no one's ever come across it before, and in its most basic form, you upload your own source material, documents, audio files, websites, whatever you want to do, upload. And then you're talking to a tool, a bit like ChatGPT, but it's Google Gemini, but it only uses those documents for its knowledge base. So when you're talking to it, you only get knowledge from the documents that you've created. I mean, it has so many other bells and whistles on it, which really allow for some amazing learning opportunities and some amazing research opportunities. But it's always a place I start with, especially when I'm writing, when I'm researching, which I do pretty much on a daily basis. It's where I just kind of throw all my research in and start to get to grips with the content. And then I'll take that, go over to ChatGPT or so on and get a bit more creative with it. But it's at the minute it's my starting point and kind of the cornerstone of a lot of the work I do. And I like that you you're not just chatting to this wide, vast knowledge base where you don't always know where it comes from. You don't um it can feel a bit like Wikipedia sometimes, but actually you get to really hone it in on what you know is good content, good research. And yeah, I like that.
But yeah, I was playing around with Notebook LM yesterday actually, and realized that now with the voice conversations, you can actually hop in and they'll say, "Oh, we have a comment from one of our listeners. Go ahead and ask a question," and you can redirect the voice
Yeah.
conversation, which it just gets better and better.
It's interesting that I love that kind of the feature where you can create a podcast based on your source material, and I use it a lot, especially if I'm trying to read something that I don't fully understand, like a large document or some governmental policy or whatever, where I'm just like, just can't get my mind into it. I'll quickly create a little podcast, listen to that first, and it really helps. So I think it's interesting when we talk a lot, don't we, about in AI and education, about AI really helping with learning. Um, but we almost say, right, it's probably coming. It's coming soon, like the AI tutor type thing. It's going to get better and so on. But actually, I think we underestimate how much a tool like Notebook LM can really help with learning right now and kind of break down those barriers. And yeah, it's exciting.
Absolutely. So much I want to talk about Notebook LM, but I want to get on to our next question. So as you know, we rate things 10 out of 10. Sometimes things are so good, they're off the charts. They're an 11 out of 10. Katz's Deli, for example, as we know. So let's get the equivalent of that. What's an AI tool that you're using right now or that you've experienced recently that deserves an 11 out of 10 and why?
You know what? I always feel really, I always feel really guilty if I like single out one tool because I work with so many tools and I know so many of the people who create these tools and they're all amazing. Um, but one of the ones I always come back to is Brisk. Now, yeah, there's something about it that I think it's because it's a Chrome extension. At heart, I'm a real Googler. Like whenever I worked in schools, I always moved them to Google. I was you have Microsoft people, you have Google people. I was firmly a Google person when I was in the classroom. And the fact that Brisk is a Chrome extension that works with the Google tools, every time I see it, I just think I wish I had that when I was teaching. I really and I still get some great reactions when I show Brisk in workshops. Um, it's a bit like a Swiss Army knife, and I really like what they do, and I like their ethics. I like the way they approach their creating their company and so on. And I just think it's really valuable. Some of those tools that they do that they have created in there, and I know are really changing and helping educators on the ground. And I think that's the key here, the fact that if it's really helping an educator on a day-to-day basis, then it's got to be good. Now I know a lot of these tools get a bit of stick sometimes, or it's a wrapper around other types of AI and the more frontier AI. I've got nothing against that, to be honest. I kind of don't understand that argument because um, we need a wrapper. Like you don't want to use ChatGPT raw with your students sometimes, and especially like you need to be able to like I'll mention another one, school AI. Like you you could create a GPT for your students. So you know what I mean, like but actually you don't want to do that, especially if your students are under 18. You're going to want to use a tool like School AI, where you then get insights into the conversation. You get a summary, you can step in if something's going wrong or if something inappropriate's happened. So I think rappers get a bad rap, but I think they're essential, to be honest. I think we need them. Educators need them, if we want to keep our kids safe and have those extra functionality so that they're usable in the classroom. So yeah, and there's so much going on there. I'm going to wrap up because I realize we're on question three and we're going to be here all day. So I'll stop talking.
There's a lot of follow-ups I have, but for folks that don't know, Brisk, again, just a Chrome extension, predates Gemini, or at least the public release of Gemini. And as you said, as a teacher, I was a Google person. I remember in the cab ride home from Katz's, we were talking about that, how finding tools that really support, that meet you where you're at. So as you're
Yeah.
saying, um, it's essentially if you're used to using Google Docs or Google Docs specifically, it really helps you build out uh, the lesson or find exemplar problems or ways that you're used to using Google. So I just want to kind of break that down for folks who haven't heard of Brisk. Obviously, check it out. I was fortunate I got to use the beta version when it first got released. Um, so we will
There's
move on, but it's
I
great.
think I think just to mention as well, Arman, who created it, he worked in the White House and he worked for the the Zuckerberg Foundation, Zuckerberg Foundation, and one of his big observations there was that just adding more technology into the workflow for teachers was actually putting them at more of a disadvantage than not because it was then an extra website or an extra platform. So his real vision was that he didn't want to build another platform. He wanted an AI that would work within the tools that they were already using. And that's what he's done. And I think that's what makes it stand out for me.
Yeah. So the medium is the message. Embrace rappers. Meet your students and your educators where they're at. Seems to be some key takeaways from Brisk Learning and from Dan here. All right, Dan. So here at AMP211, we are huge fans of 11 Labs, right? They're known for creating AI voices that are next level amazing. So if you could have any voice, historical, living, fictional, read your daily emails, or kind of be your thought partner using AI, who would you choose and why?
You know what? It's really interesting. I create a podcast every day now, which is like one of the new like a news story of the day around AI and education, and it's my voice, but I don't do it. It's 11 Labs that does it for me, just because it sounds so much like me. And I did start off with the podcast feature within Notebook LM, like we talked about, and that did the podcast for me. And then after a day or two, I was like, I need to move away from that, and actually, it needs to be my own voice. So yeah, it's interesting. I think uh, you know what I could do quite like the the Ray-Ban Meta glasses have got celebrity voices on them now, And there's a do you guys know Judi Dench, the actress, the
Yeah,
British actress? Yeah.
the name,
So,
name.
so one of the voices within the glasses is Judi Dench. So you can literally chat with the AI and it's Judi Dench's voice, and that sounds pretty cool. So yeah, maybe Judi Dench.
I feel like Brett would like that one.
I love that one. But also, just so everyone out here heard that, Dan Fitzpatrick's favorite voice is Dan Fitzpatrick. And if you're enjoying this podcast, the soothing accent of Dan Fitzpatrick, can anyone find you on 11 Labs? Like, can they search for you, or that's just you made one?
Oh, I don't know actually. Uh,
So could I have Dan Fitzpatrick read me my emails every
I
day? Could he
I
be my
kind of
11
hope
labs
not,
choice?
just because then anyone could get me saying anything. That would be scary. Yeah, I need to check that actually in the settings.
Dan, so again, you've been at the forefront of AI and innovation for years. Um, we're all so excited that things continue to push closer to that 11, right? Reaching that peak state for AI and innovation, but there's still so many gaps that still probably surprise us in its capabilities. So right now in early 2025, what's one challenge that still makes you think, how is AI not able to do this yet at the level I expect?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I think one of the things and I think a lot of people are kind of waiting for is the video side of things to because I think that's been kind of promised for a long time. I say a long time for 2 years feels like a long time, but it's kind of and we're getting like ChatGPT release Sora. We've got Google's video tool now just been released, and they're still not hitting the mark for me. I think they've still got a long way to go. I mean, they're amazing for what they can do, but I can't wait for when that is really advanced. And I know it. I kind of know it already behind the scenes. It's a lot more advanced than it is than what we're getting, which kind of excites me in a way because I think how we engage and how we create content is going to vastly change in the next few years. Um, but also, what I do quite like is that I think we're going to appreciate the human side of creativity more. And I've just this shameless plug, but in my book, I wrote a chapter called let me get it right. Finding purpose in an IKEA world. And the whole point is that I think like you go into IKEA, you can, you need a table for the spare room in your house. Nobody's going to really see it, apart from the odd guest. You're going to buy probably a $50 IKEA table. Does the job, looks all right. Um, and I think that's how we'll approach a lot of content and materials with AI that but I think what it will do is it will make us appreciate when the human creation, because let's say I want a nice dining room table from the dining room, something that's really bespoke. I'm probably not going to go to IKEA if I've got a bit of spare cash. The chances are I might find a local carpenter who, and then I can tell their story. I can there's a lot more there. And I suppose what I'm talking about is art, because art is something that tells the story of the person who made it, really. So I think we'll appreciate it more. I think it'll become more niche, but I think we'll appreciate it more. So I'm kind of excited for the video side of things because I think it could. I'm a big movie fan. I think we could almost see a revival of kind of like art house films and kind of the the films where we appreciate more. I think we've kind of. I mean. I'm getting on a hobby horse here, but like look at a lot of the movies that come out now, the franchised movies. I mean, they may as well. They could be it could be AI creating them really. The amount of special effects and the kind of predictable storylines and so on. But I think hopefully we can go back to some more niche. Um, yeah, that when I started answering that question, I didn't realize I was going to end up here, but that's what happens when you don't look at the questions.
I actually really like your analogy. I use something similar, kind of the Amazon versus Etsy, right? Like you can order
Mm,
50 of these things on Amazon for cheap, or you can get something handmade, custom by a human who created it, who created it on Etsy, and you'll pay more for it, but it'll mean more than getting a 100 pack.
yeah, Yeah, 100%. I think that right.
Yeah. And I want to shout out something you just said, right? I think as educators, we often don't think of ourselves as artists, right? That would sound very braggadocious, I think, if I was like, I'm an artist because I'm a social studies teacher. But we literally are creating lessons and really racking our brains on how to connect with, our students or, align with changes and innovations in education. I really do feel like I want to really highlight, I never really felt like an artist until AI came about because of the ability to now create artwork or
Mm.
to, create, turn my words into something bigger than I probably had the capability of doing in the past or to do it as efficiently as I can now. So I really like that idea of thinking that for people who are more humanities based like myself and many others out there, that AI truly is a way to express yourself artistically that you just probably didn't have before. It's another brush, it's another tool in the toolbox. So great
So
analogy.
and you take that to the next level of like accessibility. How many people out there? Because I suppose just to take the analogy further, that being an artist, it's almost like creating a window into yourself, isn't it? And it's really sometimes it's really difficult to do that because especially if you're doing it through writing and you don't have the skills to be able to write well. But actually being able to use a tool like ChatGPT, you can if you use it in a specific way, you can be authentic and get it to write well for you and give you that window in that you didn't have before, and especially for those who literally physically or um can't speak I would talk about the Ray-Ban glasses. My sister was just diagnosed as being blind a year ago, and I just got her some of those Ray-Ban glasses, and they've got a feature in them as well where it connects to an app for blind people where it'll ring somebody like a volunteer on the other side of the line. So a real human, not an AI, although you can do it with AI as well. And it'll show that person what she can see because of the camera on the glasses, and it'll talk her through what's in front of her and help her. The AI does that as well. But yeah, I think that accessibility and equity piece around these tools is something that I don't think is talked about enough. I think we like to talk about, well, this is replacing our own artistic nature or our own, but actually we don't talk about how that it actually it adds to our how we express ourselves, and especially for those who need it.
Yeah, that is a wonderful example of how AI can more humanize things and provide access to people who in the past, my neighbor is blind and twice now I've had to help him. And I just wonder, like, what if I didn't walk by at that moment? Like, how is this person literally had to walk down some stairs in the winter? And I'm like, how would this have just worked out if I hadn't just randomly walked by this person? Another time he was in a cab and he couldn't explain to the cab driver how to get to his house, which was 5 doors down. But that what you just said is just a perfect use case of making the world more accessible to those that right now there's many
Yeah.
blind spots. There's many blind spots and gaps in making things accessible.
And not just, I suppose, not just those with those special needs, but also just like language. I was in Madrid a few weeks ago. I went to see Paul McCartney live. It was amazing. But anyway, I was parking my car in like this underground car park in the city in Madrid, and the guy who was looking after it just didn't speak a word of English, so I was able to just pull up the ChatGPT voice and say act as a translator, and we had a full conversation. So just the ability to bring people together, it's exciting, and I don't think we talk about that enough with AI.
When we think about where we are as society, and I want to make sure you hear this, Dan. At the end, you will have a chance to shout out anyone and everyone in AI that you feel like you're missing when we ask you to talk about one single product or solution. So just want to name that. But right now,
Okay.
we're in the 11th hour, right? We have a breakthrough moment in AI and education. What's something people need to know about right now? What's a need to know AI solution or tool out there that you feel this is the right spot to tell people about?
I think it's not something that's going to be useful right now, but what they probably need to know about, and it stems from I find when I work with educators and when I see things on social media and so on, I think a lot of people are making judgments right now based on where AI is right now, or maybe where AI was 6 months ago when they last used it. and there's a confidence out there that they know what this is, and therefore we can evaluate it, make judgments on it, and adapt accordingly to it. And one of the things I want to say to people, and it's kind of one of the main messages I'd give in my talks as well, is that we we don't know where this is going to be next month. Never mind trying to judge where it is now. And two of the things that I showed to that, because they have a bit of shock value, and I want to try and when I do like a keynote talk, I try to prod the audience as much as possible. And one of them is the robotic side of this technology. If you just go and look at kind of how advanced the robotic side of this technology has become, and it's incredible, absolutely incredible. And we're going to see them. Like Elon Musk recently said he wants the Optimus to be available within 3 years for between $20,000 and $30,000. People are literally going to be living with robots that are kind of like personalized butlers, that could become friends, that goodness knows what they'll be capable of. And that's going to be happening really soon. And I think the world's going to have another ChatGPT moment where it goes, oh my goodness, because not many people know about it unless you're kind of into this or you happen to just come across it on YouTube. Not many people know about it. And then also the brain technology side of things. I think that is like again, I hate to use quote Elon Musk twice in the same answer, but he's one of the guys who's at the forefront of a lot of this technology. But he's predicting, it's a prediction, and prediction aren't always right, and notoriously he doesn't always predict right. But I think what I'd say about Elon Musk is he doesn't always predict right, but he eventually does get there, whether it's 5 years later, 10 years later. And he's predicting that by 2030, over 1 million people will have the Neuralink, so an AI device essentially sitting on top of the brain, like surgically implanted. So we're gonna see people with capabilities the likes we've never seen before in just the next few years. And I don't think that many people know just what's on the horizon when it comes to this. And again, even the Neuralink, even the robotics are using technology that we kind of already know about. It's being applied in a more creative way. So I think it's not something it's not a takeaway in terms of go use it right now that you might not have known about, but I think just having that awareness as an educator or as a leader is vitally important to know that just when you think you've grasped this, you haven't. And to plan accordingly. And again, as a plug for the book, this is that's what I've tried to do in Infinite Education. Is it's not a strategic approach where and I make it clear in the book that there's a difference between strategy and plan, and we try to jump to the plan as fast as we can because it's the nuts. It's easy. A plan's easy because you go, right, well, this is where we want to be, this is how we get there, and you can work on it, you can sit at your laptop, you can type away, you can meet with people, it's a pragmatic thing. Actually, strategy isn't like that. Strategy is the step before that, where you kind of I want to use an analogy, but every time I use it, nobody else has ever heard of it. But did I talk about this with you, Brett? I feel like
Now you have to talk.
Yeah, I'm excited. I can't tell you unless you tell me.
So I feel like strategies. My dad used to say to me when I was younger, like, if you ever want to do something and you feel like you can't do it, throw your hat over the wall first. And did we talk about this, Brett?
No, this is words of wisdom from Papa Fitzpatrick I did not learn about yet. This is new to everybody.
And as you become like a public speaker and you start coming out with things, and you're like things like phrases that you thought everybody knew were just things your parents said that. But essentially it was like, if you want to climb over a wall and you feel like it's too high, if you throw your hat over, then you've got no choice, but you've got to get over it now because to get your hat back. And that's the whole point of it. So I feel like strategy is more like throwing your hat over the wall than figuring out how you're going to get over the wall. You've still got to figure it out, but first of all, you've got to throw your hat over. And so I think that I've tried to design the book to go, right, well, where do we want to be? that doesn't even have to be a solid thing yet because we don't know. You can't start planting foundations if the sand's still moving, but you can still kind of have an idea about where you want to be. And I think that's the type of strategy we need to do at the moment. We need to be thinking where if the world moves as we think it might move, where would we like to be with that over the next 5, 10 years, let's say. Um, and then be prepared to change paths quite often to get there. So yeah, so I think we need to be aware of it and we need to strategize accordingly. Um and yeah,
Well said, and shout out to your father for some words of wisdom that sound like they resonated. Um, so I think this is a great segue, and this is I'm gonna kind of riff off the question we normally ask, but there's an expression here that at 11:11, someone turns to you and say, "Make a wish," gives it that extra magic. Um, Kind of where you're talking about in the direction you're going and the wisdom you have in your book. If you could kind of make one wish right now for how AI could shape education and or society, what would that be for you?
I really would love it to give power back to the students. And what I mean by that is I think the power in education is very much with the system. Like a student walks into class on the first day and it's right, this is what we're learning, this is what we're doing. Next day, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing for 14 years or however long it takes. I'd love AI to be able to give the power to the student to go, this is what I want to learn. And now I've got the tools that I can learn it straight away. I can start to learn it. And it's really interesting. Again, I have a lot of gripes with social media, but it's I find a lot of people on social media um, like to talk about, well, how do we want AI to be for students? What do we want to allow in our classroom? What do we want our students to have access to? And it makes me laugh sometimes because like we've got a say in it, like we've got the power to do that, um, or we perceive the power to do that, because if a student's just going to do it anyway, like, it doesn't matter if you're going, no, we don't do that in this school. Like, let's say we've got an advanced pair of the Ray-Ban glasses in 5 years' time, a student is going to be able to learn whatever they want to learn, and they're going to get guided through how to practically apply it and build the skills if they want to learn it. You going, oh, we don't allow those in class is not going to make a difference, really. If anything, it's just going to make you look more relevant in the eyes of that student. And one day they're probably going to stop turning up.
Mm,
And then what power have you got if the student's not even in your classroom? So I like the fact that the learner could take power back, and that we will get, and we're already starting to say this, new forms of education. Like, again, I write about it in the book. This I think we're going to see more and more decentralized educational options, that will allow for unconventional ways to be educated, and maybe even more powerful ways to be educated. Um, yeah, so I think and that's kind of my wish, really. I think it's the power back in the hands of the student, back into the hands of the parent. Like, imagine being a parent and just thinking, well, I could send my child to the local school, or there's this other amazing option online, or there's this other option, or there's this hybrid option, or I could join a homeschooling group at the local outdoor center. Like, I'm not saying that the traditional local school should be replaced, but I like the idea that there could be options, more options. There could be a menu of different learning experiences available.
yeah, I love that you're talking about giving power back to students, families. Um, I think when you were talking about that, it made me think, especially the idea of like they're going to do it anyway. That resonates with me both as an educator and as a parent. Like, there's times where there's unintended ways they're going to experience something. So just a quick, for example, and this will segue to our question about your own children in a moment. Um, my son was asking me questions about like evolution. He just got a book that shows all the different skulls, and I'm trying to explain it to him. I just watch his face like crunch up. Like, I was like, okay, I'm not doing a great job of this. So tomorrow, let's find a short video and you can watch how the humans evolve over time. And my daughter was next to it and she was watching and she goes, did this happen to girls too? And it made me realize because it's a man in the video, and it made me think of what you just said. Like, imagine if I could immediately be like, now make that same video, but have a female person evolve. And that kind of power is something I couldn't have done before if I was a history teacher. There's just times where the picture I had was that picture, and it might not be culturally relevant to the audience, and that's all I got, right? That's the picture that I found off Google, or that's been in this textbook for 20 years. So I love the idea of students getting the power back and families having power to create and make it more relevant to them.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that's quite powerful, and I think AI gets a bad rap for the bias side of things, and rightfully so, sometimes. But again, I think not many people focus on the ability of AI to help with human bias as well.
Yeah. Well, speaking of kids, this is the time of the show where we always want to make sure that if we know we have parents who are our guests, that you get some time to give them some flowers. So, in a moment, I'm asking you to shout out your two lovely children, and also imagine that these children will one day be 11-year-olds, and they're going to grow up in a world never knowing what it's like to not have AI at their fingertips. So, what message would you give to your own young ones and 11-year-olds out there today about the future of the world in an AI-driven environment?
Yeah, so I would. So I've got a 4 and a 5 year old, Matilda and Jacob, and yeah, I suppose I let they play with ChatGPT, the voice. They've been playing with the Santa option quite a bit over Christmas time, and um, in fact, we didn't actually finish it, but over the summer we started doing a project where we were gonna create a book together. So like a unique book with the help of AI for the pictures and the story and so on. And I suppose that kind of encapsulates what I want them to do with AI. I want them to learn how to create with it, how to how to find value with it, I think. One of the big things I talk about in the new book as well is that I think we need to really, well, yeah, let me give you a bit of background. So there's a within like the philosophy of I used to be a philosophy teacher, so within the philosophy of work and labor, there's a, a kind of a theory a few hundred years old that there's four means of production, and so one of the means of production is around what you already own. So if you own lots of land, and that's kind of how for centuries and centuries and centuries, that's how people were productive and gained more wealth, was through the fact that they already had land and they could employ people and they could do things with that land. Then we kind of moved into the industrial age, and actually those who were the most productive had labor. They were able to bring people into factories and so on. And interestingly, that's when the education system kind of came into itself, because it was a method for the industrial society to create workers to go into those types of places. We moved into a new era now, I think, and that is the era of the entrepreneur. And that is that like anybody with an internet connection and a computer now can create a company. You don't need land. You could do it in a Starbucks for free. You don't need wealth. You don't need labor. You could literally just be you in an AI. But I think so. I think the values that we need, the skills and the mindset we need to teach our young people is how do we how do we solve problems and how do we add value, entrepreneurial skills essentially. And so I want my kids to be able to have an eye for that, to go, right, how do I solve a problem here? And then how do I do it? Now, the how do I do it bit, normally there's normally a barrier there. I don't have the skills, I don't have the upfront cash, that whatever it is. Actually now, a laptop, uh, the paid version of ChatGPT, and you could probably find a way to try and solve that if you know how to use the AI really well by collaborating with the AI. And so I think I want my kids to kind of over the next few years to start learning to use AI in a way where they start to think, well, how do I add value to the world using this? Um, because I think I truly believe that the barriers of being lowered, and anybody, even if you're starting with no skills and no knowledge, can do something very quick because they've got a really knowledgeable assistant, patient assistant that can guide them and help them really fast.
Mm, well said. Yeah, that'd be amazing if everyone can tap into that idea of the entrepreneurial spirit, even if it's still in the traditional.
Yeah, I think so. And it doesn't mean, and I'd say this in the book, by entrepreneur, I don't necessarily mean a business owner. It doesn't mean you have to create a business, but um, you can work for somebody else. You can work for a company and be entrepreneur. In fact, somebody I know used the word intrapreneur the other day, and the first time I'd heard of it, and I really liked it because it was like somebody with those skills, but works within a company or works within a school or works within an organization. But I think those skills are going to be vital. I think no longer will employers just be like, right, I just need someone to follow instructions. I want someone to come with ideas. I want someone to come with being able to solve problems, to be able to get things done.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hope that's the future we have. Um, Dan, we're almost at time. Our next question is going to be, we've all kind of talked about this. You've been so forward thinking that let's just assume today's AI is just level one, right? What's really going to happen when we do crank it all the way up to 11? So like, what's possible? And you've kind of alluded to some of these, but like, what's something that you still can imagine a school looking or feeling like that right now for the average person out there would feel like sci-fi? There's no way that's possible, but it might actually be for our children who are approximately the same age.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get too sci-fi, but yeah, I don't know how to answer this one because I don't think there are necessarily limits here. And I think especially talking about like the brain technology side of things and where things could go with that over, let's say, the next few decades. Um, I don't want to speculate, but it could get really, really interesting. It could be like, in fact, I read when I was doing my MA back in 2010. My lecturer recommended a book called The Feed by a guy called M.T. Anderson, and it's like a dystopian novel. I think it's like a teenage novel, like written at the level of like Hunger Games, that kind of novel. But it's all about a world a few decades in the future where all children have this computer chip put in their head at birth, and then how they interact with the world is all through almost like an augmented reality, really, where they can communicate or listen to music just within their head. They can, if they're walking through a mall, they get like adverts pop up in front of them, like an augmented reality style adverts because of this and so on. And it's all about two teenagers who decide to rebel and go to like a backstreet surgeon to get these things removed. Yeah, I don't know why I mentioned that now, but it's I think it'd be interesting where things go. I think to bring it back down to reality, I think there's a lot of AI companies and AI CEOs at the moment talking a lot about AGI, so general intelligence. Now this could just be a play to get more investment. I think it's a bit more than that. I think they're seeing a path ahead that could lead there very, very quickly. If that happens, then we're essentially going to have an AI assistant that can help us pretty much do anything. And I think again, another cheap plug for the book, but I wrote about how I don't think AI will replace us. I think what it'll do is it'll just give us a step up, maybe 5 steps up, who knows, to shift in our focus as a species, I think.
Mm.
And I say that because that's what's always happened. Like and I go, even in the book, I go as far back as when our, like, 12,000 years ago, our ancestors started living in communities for the first time and moved away from living in caves and small family-sized tribes. Um, the skills to be able to kill were no longer needed because they farmed. The skills to be able to grow crops, not necessarily needed because there might be someone in the community who already has that skill and that's their job. So around that time we started to get kind of the invention of specialization, specialized skills. We started to get politics, we started to get education, we started to get philosophy, which turned into education, I guess. Um, so, I mean, imagine being back then saying to, right, you're not going to need those essential skills that literally keep you alive every single day anymore. Like the the caveman or woman wouldn't have went, that's okay, we'll invent philosophy, we'll be fine. They wouldn't have even had a concept of that. They wouldn't have known where they would have been over the next few centuries or whatever. So, and I think we're in a similar position. We're in a similar liminal position where we don't know where our focus might go next. But I do know, like, just because an AI can now do a lot of things, it doesn't mean we're going to sit in the house and twiddle our thumbs. Like, I think we're humans, we want to do things. It's like there's a natural thing to want to improve things, to want to work on things, to want to be productive, and I think we'll shift our focus. Now, that's not saying everything's going to be rosy. Like, there's going to be a lot of pain there, and to be fair, manual labor has been going through that pain for decades, like in terms of automation replacing jobs in factories and so on. I think we're going to get more of that. There's still going to be generational pain, but I think over the next few decades, or maybe even longer, our focus will shift, I think. So, yeah.
Well said. I also want to think about, you might want to rebrand yourself not as the AI educator, but the AI philosopher. I love
That's
how
what
much
I'm saying.
this is spanning history. I'm feeling like I'm back teaching ninth grade global history the first semester. Yeah, that was you really took us to the future, back to to the past. So thank you. That was amazing.
Thank you. That's what happens when you just speaking off the top of your head. Hopefully, it made sense.
I think we got there. Okay, our final question. And I just want to make sure for the listeners counting out there. We didn't hit all 11 questions today, but that's because I think we went really deep on some of these questions in a way that I definitely was not expecting. So again, thanks, Dan, for really taking us through some processes that I don't think most of us were expecting to hear today around AI and its impact on society. So thank you for that.
Thank
We
you.
are,
No, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for letting me shamelessly plug the book throughout as well. I appreciate that.
of course, but now is your chance. We had the over under at 11 for how many times you're going to talk about the book. I think you're approaching it, but now's your chance to give some shine to some other either authors, educators, innovators, leaders in AI, right? We all know the film Ocean's 11, right? This crew of specialists pull off the impossible. They build the dream team. So again, if you leave people out, we can always put them into the comments. We can always shout them out on social media, but you're assembling a team that's going to tackle AI's biggest challenges in education. Who are some of your must-have experts and specialists you're bringing along for the challenge?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there offering some amazing value. And if you go on LinkedIn, you go on Blue Sky, Twitter, there's great communities there of some amazing educators sharing resources and so on. A few people I want to shine a spotlight on is I mentioned them earlier, but the two guys who I started EduFuturists with, Ben Whitaker, Stephen Hope. Those guys have kind of they're UK based, but they've been really shouting about the future of education and where education needs to go pre AI or pre generative AI and ChatGPT, and really kind of moving the needle on that. Some people who I work with a lot. There's a guy called Matthew Weems who's in Romania, and he does some amazing things. He writes books on. He's got a guide for students. He's got a guide for teachers. He's still working within a school and testing this stuff out day to day. Yeah, Saba Quidwai. She's amazing. She's got a new book out called Designing Schools, where she really looks at how to harness design thinking in order to push the needle on the future of education. Saba's a great person and really innovative. Jason Gullier, he's a professor in New Jersey. He does some really cool stuff in the HE higher education side of things. So if you're in the HE side of things, follow him. And yeah, and just some real practical educators like Holly Clark, Matt Miller, Eric Kurtz, people who a lot of people have probably already heard of, but are really they're effective at doing what they do, and they really train teachers and help teachers with EdTech and AI and are out there doing this day to day. So yeah, there's tons more. And sorry if I forgot some other people, and I'll remember them as soon as we've gone offline. But yeah, I think probably the thing to take away is that there's a community out there, and I think that's one of the beauties of being able to have a global community on the internet, is that you might be a lone voice in your school and it might feel quite lonely, but actually there'll be thousands of people out there who are also the lone voice in their school. And when you find each other, it's really rewarding. And there's people on, I mean, if you go to my LinkedIn and go to the people I follow, you'll and start adding them, and you'll find people who talk about this stuff and are helping each other out. And YouTube, of course, and the work that you guys do. Yeah, and I know, Brett, you the master connector, really are, and yeah, Rebecca, the work that you're doing in the. Did I read that are you doing something with Glasgow University?
At the University of Edinburgh. Yeah.
Edinburgh. I knew it was
Yeah.
Scottish. Yeah,
Yeah.
Edinburgh's not too far from me.
You'll
But yeah,
have to take me to the equivalent of Katz's Deli, but somewhere in Scotland.
yeah, some haggis, I think.
I actually might be busy. Just kidding. Dan, we always learn so much from you. Honestly, I've been following you forever. This has been so great for me. I feel like I could do this every day and we would never run out of things to talk about. But if people want to pick up your book, how do they get it? How do they find you? Where do they order it? How do I order it as soon as we're done here?
If you go to infiniteeducation.ai, that'll get you to the page for the book. But if you just go to Amazon and search it, and my main website is the aieducator.io, so you can find a lot of information there. But yeah, if anyone wants just to reach out, my email address is on there as well. So yeah, thanks very much.
It's been an absolute honor. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, Brett.
All right, so stick around. We are going to have a quick walkthrough of GPT tasks and tell you a little bit more about how to use this feature within your ChatGPT. And Brett, you've probably been thinking about this during the whole episode in the background. What are your kind of initial thoughts about the GPT task features or questions that you might have about it?
Yeah, I think the way that, you kind of set us up today, it gets me again. We have had an amazing guest who really was sharing like how incredible AI is and how quickly we get accustomed to it and start picking holes in it. And it immediately makes me think like, I need things to integrate better than they are right now. So like, I love ChatGPT and other AI tools. And yet like, because a lot of it I'm either doing from my phone or laptop, it still doesn't like all integrate the way that my brain wants it to. So like, these are great that it would like every day provide a task. But as you've said, it's not the like way I need it to be sticky with the other things that I use technology for right now. Like, I know that. So like, I guess having to see, does it provide a notification? Could it be gamified? Could it fit into other task lists? Again, I know soon enough we'll find data integration and all these systems are going to speak to each other. But to your point, I need like an agent. I'm still waiting for like my secret. I need a secret agent AI tool that's like, just gets it all, and like it can speak to everything going on in that phone and my mind, and it's really like it's the missing piece of the triangle for me. It's tech and AI agent.
Well, this will not be the tool for you because, like I said, it's still in a beta version, but it's always interesting to check out. But actually, to get started, there's a couple kind of ways to access it. And I will pre-frame this by saying you do need to have the $20 a month version of ChatGPT. So if you don't already have that, it really is worth it. But it will be available in that more plus type plan. But to access it, you actually go up to where you change your model. There's a drop-down bar at the top towards the left where you would pick GPT-4, O1, O1 Mini, where all the different models of ChatGPT available to you are. And actually, I taught a group this week in British Columbia, Canada, and many people who even had the Pro version didn't know that this was there. And I like to explain it to people kind of like you have a garage full of cars that you would do for different things, right? You might need a truck for when you need to help a buddy to move. You might need a smart car for when you need something that on gas, but really you find it in where your model dropdown is. And it says GPT-4o with scheduled tasks on the model dropdown. And you can just give it an instruction, kind of like some of the ones we talked about. Hey, every day at 7 a.m., give me a roundup of the latest AI news. And then to manage your tasks, you're actually going to go up to your profile picture in the top right-hand corner, and there should be a menu item called tasks. And you can create a one-time task. You can create recurring tasks. So I decided to give it a try. And I said, every morning at 8 a.m., send me a summary of the latest news in AI. Keep it brief and keep an eye out for especially surprising stories that educators might find interesting. That's the task I gave it. I made it reoccurring and actually turned on a feature that gives me desktop notifications about it. So there's no way to have it email you or anything yet, but it will give you a desktop notification or right in ChatGPT. So here's what happened, though. I kind of had a bit of my very first experience. It gave me a list of actually really amazing stories. And the one I picked that I wanted to learn more about was about AI in exam proctoring. And the headline was, a new AI-based system for exam monitoring has shown a 30% reduction in cheating incidents during trial, but there's concerns about privacy and data surveillance. I was like, this is amazing. I clicked on the link, nothing happened. I copied and pasted it into a browser, nothing happened. Sure enough, it was a hallucination. And so I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, is this a real link? And ChatGPT said, no, these sources are not real. I created them as an example to show you how you might present citations and links for your given stories. If you need actual sources, you'd need to consult actual education technology publications. So I did say, hey, every time I need you to actually provide me with links. It didn't provide me a link the first time even. I asked it for a link and it gave me a fake one. And so the stories were fake too, unfortunately. You need to be very specific in your task. And as with everything that we talk about, especially with AI right now, just give it a quick little fact check, a human check, because it still gets me once in a while. It will come up with things that sound super real and that I'm excited about. And I would think that at this point I would be more skeptical, but I kind of forget a little bit about what I'm dealing with. But a few other, ways you might be able to experiment with this. This is not going to change your life overnight, Brett. Like, this is not the droid you have been looking for. But a few examples of how it might be helpful would be, a question of the day. Think of fun or thought-provoking questions at this time every day before I have this class in my classroom that we can use to kick off every class. Remind me to do prep for a staff meeting every week at this time. Remind me about this. Remind me to pause and evaluate how my teaching strategies are working this week. Dedicate an innovation hour for me from this time to this time to experiment with new teaching tools. Teach me a word a day in Spanish at 11 a.m. So that's kind of a few ideas of how it might be useful, but we'll keep experimenting with it. Brett, dying to hear your thoughts.
So what made me laugh before was, again, you teach me so many things, right? I feel like you're the AI agent I've been looking for my whole life. You're just like, oh, there's something cool out here. And every time I'm impressed. So this one, I did it in real time with you. And I thought about my children. And so, as you know, and maybe some listeners know, my son is a very early riser. So I said, create a funny picture of a dog every morning at 6 a.m. Eastern time. And the picture they made is of a dog playing poker, smoking a cigar with sunglasses on at the table. And it made me laugh. So that's promising. But all the use cases you just said, I was in a school today. I was working with a principal in New York City. And they had a quote of the day, and I was like looking, I'm like, oh, that's a cool quote. It's on a whiteboard. And as you said, sometimes many teachers that do that. And one teacher I remember, like, you check, I wanted to see it every morning. I'd walk by her classroom, and sometimes she's like, oh, I got writer's block. This is tough. School. So like something like that. I love inspirational quotes. I try to motivate a group of 6th grade students here in New York City. Can you give me one quote every day that, will make them really feel positive upon seeing it or reading it? So those kind of things, would be tremendous and helpful. And, you gave so many great use cases. But yeah, I think of it more low risk, but reduces, again, mental strain. And like, again, when you're a teacher in the morning and your kids expect that quote every day, it becomes high stakes. Like, you have to have it on the board before they come in. And so things like that, I could imagine being great. Or like you said, like, let me learn a new word every day in Spanish. Or again, I found a really funny joke last night about a duck, and I told my son at breakfast this morning, and he was cracking up. And I said, that would be a fun thing to do every morning, is find
Oh,
like
yeah.
a long story. And so stuff like that, I think, would be like amazing. And that, you're right, it's low risk, but then your kids would look forward to it. So building some really cool routines. I'm probably thinking of it in the low risk way, but you mentioned some great use cases that would be really cool to have reminders of, that bring really clear things to you every day.
And yeah, definitely, I don't think it's anything we're going to want high risk. It is in beta, right? Like, they're going to figure out ways to do it. I think they're kind of coming for Google with the search and the tasks and everything like this. But anything kind of high risk, I'm confident that it would probably remind you. I just am not confident that the information, even the quote, like, unless we're very specific in prompting. So might be something fun to try out this week, or, a tradition to start with have a joke every morning at 6 a.m. and have it make you a coloring sheet. It might be a fun thing to do, or a fun tradition, or who knows, right? But anyway, that is it for us this week on the AMP to 11 podcast. We're glad you stayed all the way to the end. We hope it was worth it. And we look forward to connecting with you next week with some more interesting, fun tools and amplifying and elevating all the great things that are happening in AI and education right now.